What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Fireside Giants. I'm your host, Anthony Rivardo, joined by my co-host, Alex Wilson. And the Giants lost yesterday in embarrassing fashion. 5 turnovers in a row. I mean, seriously. We think that it's at rock bottom, and once again, we find a new rock bottom. How does this keep happening to the New York Giants? Nevertheless, yesterday afternoon's game was a tough one. I was fuming if you guys were in our live reaction live stream to that game. It got ugly. We were pissed off, to say the least, and I'm sure many of you felt the exact same way watching the Giants basically just throw up on themselves and cost themselves a game. They handed that game to the New Orleans Saints. They were undisciplined. They were poorly coached. They kept dropping footballs. The turnovers, of course, speaks for itself. The fumbles, the inability to just hold on to the football, play basic, fundamental football. It was a frustrating football game from the Giants that I know every fan was just pissed off to watch, or, and this is even worse, many fans probably were just apathetic, saying, same old Giants. The more things change, the more they stay the same with this New York Giants football team. And listen, we're going to dive into it. We're going to talk about the blame that can go around. Particularly, we are going to talk about the head coach, but I want to clarify this and get it out of the way. Yesterday's game is not solely on Brian Daboll. He is not the only man to blame. The issue, though, is games like this happen too often for the New York Giants under Brian Daboll, and that's why we are going to point towards him, demand some answers from him, and discuss his performance as the Giants head coach over the last 3 years. But we recognize Shane Bowen did a terrible job yesterday. This secondary has been awful all season long. The turnovers were inexcusable. Jackson Dart had a terrible fumble. Cam Scadaboo fumbled. Darius Slayton was an absolute liability on the field yesterday, and the receiving corps in general was terrible, and that is an answer that we need from the general manager as to why they didn't add talent at that position. So yes, there is a lot of blame to go around, but when we are looking at a head coach with a record of 19-36-1, we have to start asking, is he the right guy to be leading the New York Giants, or should they fire him? And of course, that's where this conversation is going to lead. But we are primarily going to be reacting to yesterday's game and recapping it and giving you guys our analysis on that Giants disaster class versus the Saints in Week 5. Alex, how are you doing today, my friend? And what is your reaction to yesterday's embarrassing loss to the Saints?
My reaction, well, my reaction is I woke up this morning, had a nice cup of coffee, went about my Monday like every other Monday, disappointed. Disappointed in the product, disappointed in the effort, disappointed in the regime. And it seems like they can't learn the same lessons. They make the same mistakes, but they keep, failing to gather the message and apply it. What we saw from this game, and we're going to talk about Jackson Dart, we're going to talk about what we saw from him. There was one unit that genuinely looked fantastic, and it was the offensive line, right? They looked really solid. The pocket was there. Jackson Dart had plenty of time, but the execution was poor. We can't blame the offensive line anymore, Anthony. They're not the problem right now. For the first time in a decade, the offensive line is not the problem. Carmen Priscillo, hats off to you, good sir. You're doing a pretty damn good job despite having one of the worst interior offensive lines in the game on paper. You have a 36-year-old Greg Van Roten, a very suspect center in John Michael Schmitz, and John Runyan, who came in to be an average player, and he's been actually decent the last 2 weeks. So Carmen Priscillo, you, my friend, get a pass for all of this. But everybody else is on the hook. Everybody. From the coaches, from the players, to the trainers. Right? We got players dropping like flies. Darius Slayton hurts his hamstring, got a short week on Thursday. He might not play. Who will the Giants call up? The Giants went into this game with 51 guys, not even 53. So, Anthony, let me start there. The Giants went into this game 2 guys short. You want to know why? Because Joe Schoen is mismanaging the cap right now. Mismanaging the cap. He is going to have to restructure another contract. It's going to be Brian Burns' most likely. He's going to have to restructure Brian Burns' contract to open up enough money just to get through the rest of the season. Okay? The Giants went into this game shorthanded at receiver because he didn't want to restructure Burns' contract yet because he wanted to save a couple dollars. Well, buddy, you just lost to the New Orleans Saints. So, yeah, you might have saved $40K, but you're out of a job. You know what I mean? This is the type of decision-making that positions you for failure and to be on the hot seat. This is why Joe Schoen should be on the hot seat. This is why Brian Daboll is on the hot seat, because they make decisions detriment to the success of this team. Brian Daboll did not directly lose yesterday's game for the Giants. It was a full, complete, utter, devastating failure. But Anthony, this has been 3 years in the making. 3 years in the making. If you want to sit here and say, well, Brian Daboll wasn't the reason we lost. Guys, Brian Daboll is one of the worst head coaches the Giants have ever had on paper. He had a 10-game losing streak, the longest in franchise history, right? Anthony, I know you posted a whole bunch of stats this morning. I'll let you get to that in a second. But we're not talking about a one-game sample size. We're talking about a 3-year sample size. We're talking about bad decisions after bad decisions, bad coaching decisions after bad coaching decisions, bad discipline. 100 yards and penalties is just as much as it is on the coaches as it is on the players. 5 straight possessions of turnovers is just as much on the coaches as it is on the players. And we're going to talk about Jackson Dart and how raw he looked yesterday and the problems that we saw in the second half of that game. He opened the game looking like he was ready to dominate. 2 straight touchdowns, tremendous stuff going on there. I didn't necessarily hate Mike Kafka's play calling or game plan. There were guys open. They just dropped them or fumbled it in critical moments. Kafka's play calling was not the worst part of yesterday's game. It was the execution. It was the tendencies and everything in between. But Anthony, before we dive into that, before I hand it off to you to give me your kind of spiel on Brian Daboll and what he's done to position himself to be on the hot seat right now, or on life support, as I said in yesterday's live stream, I made a little fun advertisement for you guys. I wanted to get a little creative with this one, not just a regular read, but a little bit more active. From Brunt, awesome footwear, the Oman. Get $10 off by using the code FIRESIDE on the Brunt website. Had a little fun with this one. I hope you guys enjoy it.
Grab Brunt's the Oman today. Use Fireside for $10 off.
Remember that time James Hudson whacked a cowboy in the head? It's way cooler wearing Brunts. Remember that time Saquon Barkley jumped over someone backward? It's way cooler wearing Brunts. Brunts aren't only good for working in the yard, they're also good for running routes.
So guys, I hope you enjoyed that Brunt ad. Had very fun with it. I'm going to try to do more fun stuff like that so it's more interactive and enjoyable than just watching us do a read. Sometimes it's fun to have some real life applications to our sponsors. So appreciate you, Brunt, and hopefully you guys enjoyed that one. But Anthony, tell me about Brian Daboll, your perspective on him right now, how you think he is today, Monday morning, after that defeat. I think at this point, the Giants are just waiting until the right time to fire him. I don't think there's much time left.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, I enjoyed watching that ad for Brunt a lot more than I did watching Brian Daboll coach the New York Giants yesterday afternoon. That's for damn sure. I'll just throw some stats out there. I compiled some stats this morning. I did post them on Twitter, as you mentioned, but I'll read them off for the listeners and for those who are viewing on YouTube as well. The Giants under Brian Daboll have a 19-36-1 record. That's a .348 record. That is awful. Winning under 35% of the games played. And that's including the 9-7-1 record that they had in 2022. Take away those 9 wins and those 7 losses, and it's an even worse record with an even lower win percentage. It's bad. 10-game losing streak last season, as you mentioned, Alex, was the longest in franchise history. But here's the really damning statistic for me. Brian Daboll was brought over after a lot of success that he found with Josh Allen as the offensive coordinator of the Buffalo Bills. That offense was explosive, and they had a lot of points per game, right? And so when the Giants hired Brian Daboll, they sold themselves this lie that he was this offensive guru mastermind that was going to transform their ability to score points and their ability to play at the quarterback position. That's what we were told about Brian Daboll. In 2022, they ranked 15th in points per game on the offensive side of the ball. That's the best they've ever done under Brian Daboll, because since then, 2023, they ranked 30th. 2024, they ranked 31st. And right now in 2025, they rank 28th in offensive points per game. That is inexcusable for a head coach who's a former offensive coordinator who promised to right the ship on the offensive side of the ball, for the Giants to be averaging the minimal points per game that they have been over the last 4 years is truly embarrassing and a damning statistic for this head coach. And I'll give you another damning statistic, Alex. Right now, through 5 games, the New York Giants are the second most penalized team in football. They have been penalized 43 times on penalties that actually count against them. That's not including offset penalties or penalties that were declined. 43 penalties have counted against them for an unbelievable amount of yardage that leads the NFL. They have been penalized 43 times for 415 yards against them, and that leads the league. And again, that is a damning statistic on the head coach. I understand he's not out there committing the penalties for the players, but a head coach who has a team that leads the league in penalty yardage, I mean, who else are you going to blame but the coach, especially when this is consistent? There have been many times, even in that 2022 season where the Giants went to the playoffs, they were 6th in the NFL in total penalties counted against them. Every single year under Brian Daboll, they have been in the top 20 in penalties. They are a poorly trained team. They are an undisciplined football team. They are a poorly coached football team. These are all cold, hard truths that we can back up with statistical evidence. So I've been very confused because I've seen a lot of Giants fans on the Fireside Giants Instagram account saying, how do you blame the head coach for yesterday's loss? He didn't go out there and turn the ball over. He didn't do this for the team. He didn't do that. He didn't drop the football. He didn't throw the interceptions. No, but it's the fact that all of these things happen so consistently under this head coach, and he doesn't fix it. That's why it's his fault. And that's why he is just as much to blame as Jackson Dart or Darius Slayton or Shane Bowen, because the head coach is the boss of these guys. He is the manager. He's the one who leads this team. He is the one who's supposed to be taking the blame. We're not supposed to see Jackson Dart walking into his post-game podium yesterday, Alex, and saying, this one's on me. I'm taking the blame for this one because I'm the leader of the offense. Sure, you are. You're the young quarterback. You're the leader, and I appreciate the accountability that he's holding himself with. But the real leader of this offense is Brian Daboll. The real leader of this team is Brian Daboll. And when this team leads the league in penalty yardage, when this team turns the ball over 5 times in a game, when this team is losing on the road to a Spencer Rattler-led Saints that had 0 wins going into the game, a Spencer Rattler who had 0 wins in his first 10 career starts, and you hand him the first win of his career, I don't know how you blame anybody except the head coach. Yes, there's a lot of blame to go around, but chief among them is the head coach for a poorly disciplined, poorly trained, and just poorly executing football team. I blame Daboll more than anybody. Alex, you mentioned Shane, you mentioned there's a lot of blame to go around for sure, but when you hear those statistics, the penalties in particular, the lack of points per game also being a major standout here, what's your perspective on Brian Daboll and just the way that he has unraveled over the course of the last couple of seasons?
I mean, Anthony, let me ask you this. I'll throw it right back at you. Why was Brian Daboll hired to be our head coach?
To fix the offense.
And how many points per game has our offense averaged since he's been the head coach again? Give me that number one more time.
Points per game total is somewhere hovering around 17 or 18, but right now this season they rank 28th. Last year they finished 31st in points per game with only 16 per game.
Dude, we ranked 28th and we had like a 40-point game against Dallas.
Yep.
Put that into perspective. That elevated it significantly. We probably are dead last if we didn't play Dallas, just because their defense is that bad. Brian Daboll was brought in to fix the offense and develop a quarterback, and he's failed miserably at both. Right? Jackson Dart may end up developing to be a good quarterback, and we will talk about him. But so far, he won't be the guy to do it. He won't be the guy to develop Jackson Dart. This is my guy. This is the guy I want. I'm going to draft him, and he'll have spent less than 1 season actually trying to get him to where he wants him to be. And I'm supposed to sit here and pretend like Brian Daboll isn't at fault partially for yesterday's loss? A team that knows how to lose, but not how to win. A good team, when their backs are against the wall, fight like hell. Execute properly. Do good things. Make positive plays. The Giants beat themselves yesterday. That is a learned tendency. Okay? That is something that you gain over time. How can we possibly find a way to lose this game? Guys, we're talking about 5 possessions in a row where they turn the ball over. And I can't blame the coaching at all. I can't blame the coaching at all. That is blasphemous logic. Blasphemous. I have 3 years library of reasons to indicate that the Giants don't know how to win football games. And what we saw yesterday was another example of that. They shoot themselves in the foot. They can't bail themselves out of bad situations. They can't score at times. It's on the players too. Don't get me wrong. We're going to talk about Jackson Dart, like I said, in a couple minutes. But I don't really want to beat a dead horse too much, Anthony, because I think we all know, whether or not it was Brian Daboll's fault yesterday, that he is going to be fired this year. Like, I don't think it's a big surprise. If he's not, I mean, it would just be on John Mara, who would just straight up lied to our faces and said there was a playoff mandate and they have to get better, and they haven't, right? So like, it would just be him lying to us as fans. I don't think he's a liar. I think John Mara is pretty honest about the situation. We haven't been good enough. We need to see better. We need to be a playoff team. All those things, I think I know he has other things going on in his life right now. He was recently diagnosed with cancer, so prayers up to John Mara, obviously. He's probably not thinking about football that much right now, and he probably has other people handling that. So to see what we're seeing for the Giants, they don't even have to fight for their owner. You know what I mean? Like, they're not even like fighting for this organization, doing what's necessary to be a good football team. That's kind of sad to me, man. Like, they don't have any pride for themselves, except for some of these young guys. I think, Scatterbo tweeted after the game, "I'll be better." And if you watch that fumble he had, my guy, Jermaine Illumino, I'm not going to absolve him of just because I like him. He had a horrible game yesterday. He got absolutely blown up on that play that Scatterbo fumbled. He got hit blindsided because Illumino got completely cooked. You know what I mean? So I like Illumino. I've spoken very highly of him, but he was bad yesterday, man. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you guys. So there was a lot of bad performances that aided and contributed to that loss. But, now let's transition to Jackson Dart. First half of that game, things were looking pretty good. I was like, all right, like this offense has got some juice. Like, there's life here. I wasn't necessarily upset with Mike Kafka altogether. He was doing what he had to do, a lot of 12 personnel. But then we saw Jackson Dart kind of regress in the second half, and I think a lot of drops, failed momentum. He lost the pace of the game. What did you see from him? Like, what kind of reality did you see from Dart? Like, kind of started to shoot himself in the foot, and he was a bit overconfident at times.
Yeah, I do want to talk about Jackson Dart, but just a second before I do jump over to there, I have a couple more stats on the New York Giants under Brian Daboll that I need to share with you, Alex, and I need you to listen closely to this one. The Giants last season, of course, we know they released Daniel Jones mid-season, right? And Brian Daboll and Daniel Jones clearly had a strained relationship. Whether you want to point to him throwing a tablet down on him, whether you want to point to him screaming at Daniel Jones in Germany after he missed the flea flicker, right? There were so many moments where Brian Daboll made it clear that he felt like he can't win because Daniel Jones is his quarterback, and that he needed a change at quarterback in order to start winning, right? That was kind of what he sold us on, and that was kind of the whole idea that the Giants sold us on as why they were bringing Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen back. Well, let them get their quarterback, let them get their guy, and they'll start winning games. That was the bridge that they sold us. The Giants have played 12 games since they released Daniel Jones. They have a 2-10 record in those 12 games. They won one game last season after benching/releasing Daniel Jones. They have won one game this season. That is a pretty damning statistic if you ask me. In fact, if you want to go even further back, how about the Giants' last 25 games? They have a 5-20 record in their last 25 games.
I feel bad for us, bro. I feel bad for us more than anybody.
I feel bad for so many Giants fans who spend their hard-earned money to watch this team. The amount of money you got to spend for Sunday ticket if you live out of market. The amount of money that you have to spend on parking and concessions just to go to that dump of MetLife Stadium. Not even mentioning the amount that you spend on the tickets just to get in the doors. The amount of money that fans spend on jerseys, memorabilia, everything that goes into this team, hard-earned money, choosing to spend your time every Sunday, every Monday, every Thursday. There's so much time and money invested from the fan base into this team. And this is the product that they hand to the fan base. This is the power dynamic that they hand front office and coaching staff together, and they say, yeah, this is the group that we believe in, and it's going to turn things around. 5-20 record. I feel bad for us. I feel bad for all fans. It's just inexcusable, man. It's really inexcusable. So, yeah, I'll talk about Dart. I'll give my perspective on the way he played yesterday, but I had to put those statistics out there. And, obviously those are statistics under Brian Daboll. They're also under Joe Shane. So, everybody is a culprit here, and everybody is on this sinking ship that is the New York Giants and this current regime. So, just bad stats and a lot of losing over the last several years. But when you're looking, Alex, at the way Jackson Dart performed yesterday, listen, it wasn't perfect, but he's the least to blame, in my opinion. Let's just talk about his turnovers. The fumble was bad, and that was his fault. He was running around with the football, waving it in one hand like he was Lamar Jackson. He didn't tuck it high and tight. It's a basic football 101. You got to tuck the football, okay? Rookie mistake. Let's just call it that. Rookie growing pains. The interception that he had to Jalen Hyatt was basically an arm punt. It was 4th down. He didn't have anywhere to go with the football. There was nobody open, so he threw it downfield, and he pretty much allowed the Saints to pick him off, and they took the ball over at their own 5-yard line. That's not really that bad or that egregious of an interception. And then the second interception that he threw, the one to Bo Collins didn't run his route. Bo Collins was supposed to be running a level, an in route, 5-yard in. Just cut in and then reach your hands out and grab the football. He breaks up 5 yards, he turns, and he stops running his route. And Jackson Dart threw the ball with anticipation, and it went right into the hands of a Saints defender because Bo Collins didn't run his route. Now, do you blame Jackson Dart for that? Do you blame Bo Collins for that? Well, you give some blame to probably both of them, more to Bo Collins in my opinion. But you give the most blame to the general manager that didn't put a legitimate wide receiver on the football field. Bo Collins is an undrafted rookie out of Notre Dame who wasn't even a focal point of the Notre Dame offense. This guy was meant to be a core special teams player for the New York Giants, and he's out there as one of their 3 starters on Sunday afternoon. It's unbelievable to me. So I'm not going to blame Jackson Dart solely or fully even for those turnovers. The fumble's his fault. What I will blame him for is mechanically he needs to be better as a passer of the football. There was a deep throw to Darius Slayton off of a flea flicker that he had all day to throw, held on to it a second too long, and then threw it from a flat base. He didn't step into this throw and put some mustard on it and throw it downfield where Slayton could run underneath it. He stood there still as a statue and basically just threw a wounded duck up there for Darius Slayton. Now, Slayton could make a better play on the ball, absolutely. The ball was still, I think, somewhat catchable. With a superstar like Malik Neighbors, maybe it is a touchdown. But it wasn't a great throw from Jackson Dart, and that's something that keeps popping up for him. He hasn't been hitting the deep shots this season through 2 games, and that's because he's not getting his feet set, and he's throwing from a mechanically unsound base. He needs to improve that. And that's where I say, maybe he could have spent a little bit more time behind the scenes developing. Maybe he shouldn't have been thrown into the fire week 4, week 5. Yeah, the Giants won last week, but they lost to a Chargers team that just seems to be in a rut now. They just lost in pretty embarrassing fashion yesterday afternoon, too, to the Commanders. So maybe it was just more of a Chargers in a struggle mode than it was Giants in an actual groove. So, listen, Alex, I think Jackson Dart is young and he's fine and he's going to learn from these mistakes and he's going to be better. But I also think he's in an environment where mistakes are going to continue to be bred. You're talking about looking at Jackson Dart from this perspective of rookie mistake, don't make the same mistake twice. And I think Dart's a smart player, and I think that he's going to improve and he's going to develop. But I can't say for sure that he's not going to make the same mistake twice when he's playing in the environment that he's playing in. Because this is a bad environment that breeds mistakes. And that's why I'm worried about Jackson Dart. Because he was thrown into the fire very early in his career, starting in week 4 after the Giants paraded Russell Wilson around the city and promised everybody that the quarterback play was going to improve under Russell Wilson, that Malik Neighbors was going to have a superstar year because Russell Wilson was throwing the moon ball that they couldn't stop talking about all throughout training camp. These are all the things that the Giants told us. And then the Giants immediately, as soon as the going got tough, gave up on that whole plan, switched it to Jackson Dart, and threw this poor rookie into a fire. And again, this is a bad environment for a rookie quarterback right now because they are a losing football team. They don't have a real receiving core, and they have a head coach who's desperate and on the hot seat. These are all factors that are going to hold this rookie quarterback back and prevent him from developing properly. So, Alex, how do you feel about that? Jackson Dart, again, maybe the least to blame, like especially on a couple of those turnovers. But you can't say he's not going to make the same mistake twice because he is in an environment that breeds mistakes. What's your perspective on Jackson Dart basically being thrown into the wolf den here with Brian Daboll as his head coach?
Let me make this very clear. I don't give a shit how many times Brian Daboll says I love you to Jackson Dart. I don't give a shit how many times he pats him on the butt, pats him on the back, and has weird relations with him in the locker room, as Connor Hughes would report. Crazy romantic novels. I don't give a shit what Brian Daboll says anymore. It's empty words, Anthony. It's all empty. There's no substance behind it. We've watched him fail to get the most out of Daniel Jones, where now he's killing it with the Indianapolis Colts. They have a good, well-run team. Brian Daboll sells this theory that he's my guy. We're going to win with him. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And then they don't. That Chargers win was an anomaly over a large sample of really bad, catastrophic defeats and embarrassing performances. Jackson Dart, if the Giants want to make the most of that young kid, they will fire Brian Daboll tomorrow. Because he is empty with his words. I'm sure he's a fine dude, okay? But he has clearly lost the plot here. He has clearly lost the ability to develop talent. We've seen it across the board. How many young players have really developed for this Giants team that aren't top 6 picks? Evan Neal's a complete bust, right? Kayvon Thibodeau's finally 4 years in and 4 years of doing his own work to get there and having Burns alongside him and, decent, like Andre Patterson, a good coach, right? A lot of these guys are individually successful because, well, they came into the league dominant already. Like Malik Neighbors is dominant already. Abdul Carter was dominant already. They're succeeding and developing in spite of this coaching staff, not because of it, right? Jackson Dart is not going to get where we need him to be with Brian Daboll as head coach, and I'm not falling for the nonsense anymore, dude. I'm not falling for the I love you, Jackson Dart. You're my guy. I'm going to make you great. You're going to make me great. We're going to be great together. I don't want to hear the bullshit anymore. I'm over it. I'm over the empty words. I'm over the empty reasons and logic and decision-making. There's nothing behind it of substance. Nothing. Action is the only thing I want to see from this team, and they consistently fail to act. They're really good at reacting, but really bad at proactiveness. So, if the Giants want Jackson Dart to succeed, they need to do what's best for him. And that is not letting Brian Daboll convince everybody that he's going to save Jackson Dart. This kid does not need saving. He needs developing. And we have one of the worst offenses in football over the last 3 years. By the numbers. You know what I mean? Yesterday's performance, the second half of it, Jackson Dart had some bad moments. Had some interceptions, whatever. But like you said, guys are stopping in the middle of their routes. What the hell are you doing? The guys don't know the fucking playbook. They don't know the fucking routes they're supposed to run. That is a coaching issue. You know what I mean? How you can sit here and tell me Bo Collins, undrafted free agent, does not know the playbook, does not know the route. I watched Darius Slayton not know a route. Jackson Dart throws it out to him, doesn't know the play. How is that not a coaching issue in addition to a player issue? How can you not blame the coaching for not getting your players to understand your damn playbook? You cannot convince me that this is also not a huge coaching flaw, okay? There was miscommunications in the entire second half across the board. And I'm supposed to sit here and pretend like it was only the players' fault? Guys, we did this already. The people in the comments saying, you guys blame Daniel Jones for so long, are the same ones saying we can't blame Brian Daboll. You know what I mean? This is a full, complete team collapse. This is not any individual. We have to see it as it is. The whole team is bad. There are a couple of individual pieces that are good. Burns and Dexter and Abdul was tremendous yesterday. The numbers suggest that. There are a couple of individuals who are good on this football team. Andrew Thomas. But the collective, this is a team sport, guys. This is not a one-show horse race. Everyone's got to play. Everyone's got to be good. I need to see maximum effort from everybody, which I don't see. Cam Skadbu, that block he had in that 4th and 1 where he buried that guy and then gets up. I need to see effort like that from everybody. Why are the receivers stopping in the middle of their routes? That is a coaching problem. These guys are not bought in. They don't know the playbook. You know? Your opportunity, it is the job of the coaching staff to get your players prepared for when their number is called. And when your guy is called, number gets called, you're in there and you don't know the fucking play. You just spent $36 million on a receiver who doesn't catch the ball or doesn't run his routes properly or doesn't even look for the football. Or Jalen Hyatt's on the field who has a roster spot who is looking for pass interference before the ball even gets to him. These are coaching issues. Stop bullshitting and giving other people excuses. This is a full team collapse. I'm tired of the fucking excuses. I'm tired of the bullshit. I'm tired of the same story every freaking year. They need to flip the freaking switch, get rid of Brian Daboll, and save Jackson Dart before they destroy him too. Because that is what is going to happen. They're going to destroy this kid. The Giants destroy young talent. That is what they're good at. And for a quarterback, you need good coaching. You need it. You can't survive without good coaching as a quarterback. There are very few players who can survive that. Even with Andy Reid and the Chiefs, Mahomes, like they have lack of playmakers, injuries, this and that. Coaching elevates that. The quarterback has to have good coaching. If you have bad coaching, you're already dead to rights. You're already done. Okay? We need to understand that Jackson Dart will fail with Brian Daboll. He will fail with this coaching staff. He will. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. He will. Because we know it to be true. So, Anthony, I'm not going to blame Jackson Dart for yesterday entirely because poorly coached teams do poorly coached shit. And that is what the Giants did yesterday. They had momentum. They had chances to score, build that pace, build that confidence in him. And instead, they crushed it. So there were lots of things that I think he needs to do better, but he was far from the problem yesterday.
Yeah, I agree with you. I really don't think that Jackson Dart played all that poorly. He didn't play perfectly, but he played like a rookie quarterback with some potential. I saw some really good things from him. And yes, I saw some rookie mistakes, but come on, he's a rookie. You got to help your rookie quarterback out. The receivers need to help him out. And man, the coaching staff needs to help out the rookie quarterback. The defense needs to help out the rookie quarterback. It's kind of tricky, Alex, because stuck in a rock and a hard place with this defense. The offense can't sustain drives, turns it over, and leaves the defense out there way too often. But at the same time, the defense is also giving up 80-yard touchdowns to Spencer Rattler and Rashid Shaheed. You know, you can't blame the offense for that. So you look at the defense, and you look at Shane Bowen, what he's done with this unit. Last week, we saw some pretty exciting returns on this pass rushing group that the Giants have invested so much money and resources into. They've invested a lot into that defensive line. I mean, they're paying Dexter Lawrence almost $30 million per year. They're paying Brian Burns $30 million per year. They spent a second-round pick to get Brian Burns. They spent the first-round pick on Kayvon, on Abdul. Those are both top 10 picks. I mean, they have invested more into this defensive line than any team has invested into any position group, arguably. And they're never going to see maximum returns on these investments if they don't get a defensive coordinator that knows how to scheme together a football game. And even if he knows how to scheme together a stunt for the pass rushing group up front, it doesn't matter if he's sitting in man coverage with the cornerbacks 8 yards off the football, allowing the quarterbacks to pick up 5-yard receptions a pop. And that's what we see from this Giants team. And those 5-yard receptions a pop actually turn into 12 to 20-yard receptions because this is one of the worst tackling football teams that I've ever seen in my life, Alex. Every single week, I'm seeing a Giants cornerback just get carried and dragged across the field for an additional 15 yards after contact. It's unreal. Just constantly, we are seeing missed tackles from poor tackling angles or from poor assignment. Right? Not being able to fulfill your assignments, missing your gaps and not hitting your run fits. We see things like that every single week with this defense. We see just plain vanilla coverage get carved up. I mean, Spencer Rattler said that to the media. He said they don't do a whole lot on the back end to disguise their coverages. He basically said Shane Bowen's defense, it's a pretty vanilla scheme. We kind of see exactly how to crack it open. And then Spencer Rattler, of all people, on Sunday, actually went out there and cracked open that vanilla scheme. I mean, it's Spencer Rattler, Alex. It's not like the Giants lost to Josh Allen. It's not even like in week 3 when they lost to Patrick Mahomes. They lost to Spencer Rattler yesterday. They had him looking like a Pro Bowl quarterback in that game. So we can blame the offensive side of the ball, the turnovers, the head coach. And I understand that the turnovers contributed to the poor play of the defense. There's only so much the defense can do when it's constantly on the field. But come on. You made Spencer Rattler look like a stud in that game. You gotta throw some blame to the way of the defense. And in particular, this secondary. I mean, listen, we hype up Drew Phillips, Alex. We really like him. He makes some good plays. He's the most penalized player in football. He has over 115 penalty yards himself that he's committed. 6 penalties for over 115 yards. That's an egregious statistic. He needs to figure that out. But the fact that he is the Giants' best cover man should tell you everything that you need to know about this coverage unit. Paulson and Daboll, they've been picking on him. Opposing teams are picking on Paulson and Daboll. And the Giants handed him $17, $18 million per season this offseason. Javon Holland, I think he's one of the 10 worst safeties in football right now. That's the way he's been playing. Giants handed him $15 million per year. Deonte Banks, who they drafted in the first round 2023, is unplayable. Cordell Flott gets picked on too. The entire defensive secondary is playing so far beneath their expectations. And I get to a point, Alex, where I say, it can't be that much of a talent issue, can it? I understand that they're not the most talented group in that secondary, but they can't be this bad. Javon Holland is a former Pro Bowler. Deonte Banks was an absolute star at Maryland. Drew Phillips has obviously flashed his potential to be an elite player in this league. So I look at the constant, just terrible play from this secondary, and I say there's something wrong with the coaching staff. They do not know how to maximize, develop this talent, and this scheme is too vanilla, like Spencer Rattler said it was. It's definitely not doing any of the defensive backs any favors on Sundays. So, Alex, I know we're ranting and we're raving and we're pissed off and we're trying to find where we can place blame. And we put a lot of it on Brian Daboll. I'm taking some of it off of him and handing it over to Shane Bowen, but I want to get your take on it too. This vanilla defense that Spencer Rattler called out prior to the game midweek in his press conference and then went ahead and carved right up. What's your reaction to the Giants secondary making Spencer Rattler look like an all-pro?
I mean, the Giants are living and dying by their front four. That's the best way to put it, right? Shane Bowen is like, let's kind of say it this way. Shane Bowen is not the reason the Giants have had any success on defense. It's the talent on the defensive line that is elevating the floor of that unit, right? Abdul Carter, Kayvon, Brian Burns, Dexter Lawrence, they are simply keeping this defense from looking like a complete embarrassment. Okay? They don't disguise coverages. They don't leverage matchups. They don't use these matchups and these disguises to give themselves a chance. They clearly don't understand baiting throws. You have Spencer Rattler at quarterback, and you can't bait him to make a throw and then have Newbin or Holland bite underneath and pick it off. Like you have nothing that you've seen on film that could help you. You're letting Spencer Rattler tear you to pieces, shred you apart. You can't convince me that Shane Bowen's sitting there in the film room, just sitting there with a blank stare, not understanding how to bait Spencer Rattler, one of the worst quarterbacks in football, to make a bad decision. Right? That is what good defensive coordinators do. They know how to identify bad decision-making and then leverage it to their advantage. Shane Bowen is simply giving his front four pass rushers the green light to just go win this game for us. Go make it look like I know what I'm doing. And I said it before the season started, Anthony, this pass rush is too good for Shane Bowen to ruin it. That is true. But Shane Bowen is not good enough to disguise a lack of flaws and talent in the secondary, right? The secondary is floundering right now because Paulson Daboll is not playing like a CB1. Javon Holland looks like a waste of a contract at this point in time. Tyler Newbin is constantly out of position, right? I mean, Deonte Banks is constantly being picked on. You're seeing that the weaknesses of this team are exactly what we thought they would be because the defensive coordinator is bad and the pass rush is very good. But the pass rush can't play cornerback too. You know what I mean? If you just get the ball out quick, they're going to be open because you're not disguising coverages. You're not actually doing anything to position your team for success and position, schematically. So I don't know. Shane Bowen is very much at fault. Look, the defense is not the primary reason they're losing these games, Anthony, by any means. But Shane Bowen is not the reason that their defense has been playing at a competent level. It's simply because their pass rush has so much talent that they're elevating the floor of this unit significantly. If they had a really good defensive coordinator and the secondary was able to disguise some coverages, do a little bit more, the schematics were better, I think this defense could be top 5 in the NFL. That's honestly what I think they could be. But they don't have the play calling. They don't have the schematics to be that good. Hopefully they can figure out someone next year that can do that. It's a big game of what if, but they have the talent to be very good. They just don't have the play calling to be.
Unfortunately, I agree. I think there is a lot of talent on this defense. I think the secondary has more talent than what shows up on Sundays, and I think that is because of poor schematics. And Alex, before we do wrap up, I know, again, we've been ripping into this team totally. I'm going to take some shots at the general manager here because I'm going to say this. There are 2 players on this football team who do not deserve to be on this football team. Number 1, get Jalen Hyatt the fuck off of my football team. This guy is unplayable. This is a guy who every time the ball is thrown his way, instead of actually catching the football, he is just flailing his arms, looking for penalties while the ball is still in the air. And nothing irritates me more than that. And I mean, really, it fucking irritates me, Alex. I swear every time that ball is in the air, Jalen Hyatt is just throwing his arms up. Where's the flag? Where's the penalty? Pass interference! Crying for the flag. That never comes because this is a man's league. This is a physical sport. And if you're not a physical player, you don't have a spot in this league or this sport. You cannot cry for a penalty every time the ball is thrown your way. You still have to make the catch. And you gotta do it with your fucking hands. Not with your chest, but with your hands. The ball has to hit your hands for you to catch it. Every time the ball hangs up there in the air, Jalen Hyatt runs into a defender, throws his hands up in the air, looks for the flag, and then lets it bounce off of his chest. That's Jalen Hyatt. You don't believe me? Go watch all of his reps. I've done it. Go watch the ones that he had yesterday, the drop that went through his chest yesterday. Go watch the drops that he had in the preseason where, again, he was looking for a flag before the ball hit the ground, before it hit his chest and then hit the ground. It's a consistent thing with this kid, and it's why he doesn't see the field. It's why he can't get on the football field for the Giants. And because he can't get on the football field for the Giants, I question why the fuck they still give him a roster spot. You mentioned it, Alex. They dressed 51 guys for this game. Not 53 like they're allowed to, 51. They didn't add another wide receiver. They didn't add any depth at running back. Both of those positions are extraordinarily thin at both of those positions. And Jalen Hyatt is wasting space on this roster when he can't get a single reception during a regular season game. Cut him. I don't care that you traded up to draft him in the 3rd round of the 2023 draft. This is an ego thing now, Joe Shane. And your ego is not more important than the success of this football team. So cut this bum. Get him off of the football team and throw little Jordan Humphrey out there because at least he can catch the football. He proved as much during the preseason. He proved as much during the training camp period. Montrell Washington, he also had some drops. I trust him to make those catches more than I trust Jalen Hyatt. So just get him off the football team. And that's player 1. I just went on that rant. I didn't even get to player 2. And you already know who player 2 is, Alex. Why is Evan Neal on this football team if they won't even dress him on Sundays? And you just said it. They dressed 51. They had 2 extra spots. You couldn't at least let Evan Neal wear some pads?
They're fucking paying him.
He can't wear some shoulder pads on the sideline? He's out there in street clothes. He's out there in sweatpants, Alex.
They're paying him.
What are we doing?
We have rosters. We need roster spot. We need receivers. We need other players, but they're paying Evan Neal on the final year of his rookie contract like $8 million.
Alex, they're
crazy.
Paying Evan Neal and holding on to him on this roster. And I think I need to remind everybody, the Giants
could have traded him.
Declined trade offers for Evan Neal last season.
Unbelievable.
No, that's a
Unbelievable.
That's a real fact. You can find the reports online. Go over to ESPN. The Giants had trade calls on Evan Neal at last year's trade deadline. They rejected those offers. And they explained the reason why they did that this offseason was, well, we believe there's still a good player in there. We just need to move him to guard. Then they moved him to guard, Alex. And during the preseason, how many times did this new guard fall flat on his face? Surrender a pressure, surrender a sack. He's just not a good football player. And you're just wasting a roster spot for him, Joe Shane, out of pride and out of your ego. but he doesn't deserve that roster spot, and neither does Jalen Hyatt. And enough is enough. This is an unserious organization, a very unserious football team that employs players who will never see the field just because they don't want to admit that they missed on those draft picks. I don't know. Are there any other teams in the NFL that do this? I haven't seen something as egregious as this in a very long time. These guys literally only have roster spots because this team refuses to admit that it was wrong and that it missed on these draft picks. That's the only reason. And that is really embarrassing for those two players, and it should be embarrassing for the general manager. But we barely ever hear from the general manager. He sits up there and he speaks to the media maybe twice per year. But you know what? He's got a lot to answer for next time he takes the podium, because this is a poorly managed football team with a bad coaching staff, a bad roster, and a really bad way in terms of cap space. He has messed it up at every single level of this team. So there's a lot of blame to go around. I know the title is going to say, should the Giants fire Brian Daboll? The answer is probably.
Both.
Especially if they lose on a short week here against Philadelphia, which they're probably going to.
They will.
They'll have an extra 3 days. So they'll have a 10-day week here to prepare for week 7. That's a good time to move on from a head coach. But that's not going to be the end-all, be-all here. That's just step one. You fire the head coach, you still got a litany of other issues that plague the New York Giants right now.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you this. If Joe Schoen, and look, we already know that some coaches didn't want to come here because it was a sinking ship. If the Giants keep Joe Schoen, why would anyone want to attach themselves to this organization, knowing that Joe Schoen is on life support too? You know what I mean? Like, they can't keep one of them. They have to get rid of both of them. I don't understand how you can justify keeping Joe Schoen when he has to go out and now find another head coach who's going to come in and say, are you about to get fired? Am I going to be alone? Am I going to have a new GM next season at mid-season? You know, like, this is the type of decision-making you can't make. Like, you can't attach a new head coach and new coaching staff to a general manager still on life support. You know what I mean? They did the same thing, letting Brian Daboll pick his quarterback despite the fact he was on the hot seat. You know what I mean? Like, this is the organizational decision-making that needs to be solved. So, I mean, you know, you talked about Jalen Hyatt and Evan Neal. You know my opinions on those two. Complete and utter busts. Complete and utter busts. There's no other way to describe it. Jalen Hyatt, once considered a reasonable prospect with good straight line speed that could be a factor on this offense, has become nothing but mistake after mistake, and cry about it, look for penalties, play through the whistle. Play like Cam Scottaboo. If I was Brian Daboll today, I'd be like, guys, I know Cam Scottaboo fumbled yesterday, but he took full accountability for that immediately after the game. You know what I mean? Jackson Hart went out and took full accountability for his mistakes, went to everybody in that locker room and apologized and said, I got to be better. You know, showed some leadership. Jalen Hyatt doesn't take accountability for his mistakes. He goes out and does it again and again and again and cries and cries and cries and looks for penalties. Brother, play through the whistle. Play like you want that ball. Like, that ball is your future, because it is. Every catch for Jalen Hyatt is another dollar sign, another zero at the end of a future contract. That's what he should be playing for, because he doesn't care about football, clearly, because he doesn't play like he gives a shit. You know what I mean? He gets out there, 34 snaps, didn't have a single catch. He's not running the routes crispy enough. He's not getting open enough that the Giants feel they can feed him the football. They're seeing it on film, obviously. We can't throw it to him. He's not open. On the one play, they did throw it to him, Anthony, downfield on the left side, where it went right through his hands. He was blanketed in coverage. In man coverage, he had a man coverage, no safety help, nothing, and he actually was behind the cornerback, Anthony. He was behind the cornerback. He can't get open. He can't separate. His speed doesn't matter. The game speed is not there. He is done. He's gone. Peace. Sayonara. Bring up an UDFA. I don't give a shit, man. Anybody else. Go get Isaiah Hodgins off the Steelers practice squad. I guarantee you he gives us more value on day one than Jalen Hyatt will all season long. That's the problem, right? Evan Neal, the only reason Evan Neal is on this roster right now is because Joe Schoen is trying to save face and not have it go down on paper as he cut a 7th overall pick in year 4. Cut him outright and didn't trade him. This is all stuff for down the road legacy when you look back. Oh, Evan Neal was on the team for 4 years. They didn't pick up his 5th year option. That's what the story will be. Hell no, bro. I'm not remembering it that way. I'm remembering this dude sat healthy scratch every single week collecting a paycheck and not playing. When we needed receivers on the team, we needed players. He could have traded him. cut your losses. Do what's best for the organization. The Giants do not do what's best for the organization, and it shows. Joe Schoen lately has been doing a hell of a lot of stuff that's good for him, and not a hell of a lot of stuff that's good for the team. That is what we call saving face. That is what we call an organization on the edge, on thin ice, trying to position themselves to look better on paper, right? Going to Jackson Dart. Most people thought like we should give him some time, let him develop, do this the right way. And then we expedited the process once again because we had no choice because Brian Daboll's on the hot seat and he just made a shotgun decision and basically did it on his own. You understand this is the roundabout way the Giants have been doing stuff for the last decade. Everything they intend to do, they end up cutting it short and cutting the cord. You know what I mean? Like, it's not sustainable. It's not sustainable. So I don't know what the future holds. I don't know how to fix this, man. I'm just a content creator. But I sure as hell know that what we're doing now is not going to solve the problems. So I'm just glad it's not my job to fix it. But sometimes I kind of wish it was, because there's no way I could do worse than what we've seen. You know what I mean? There's no way we could do worse than what we've seen. And I tweeted it today, Anthony, and I'll leave you with this. Darius Slayton, and this is just a comparison of contracts. I just want to throw it out there in terms of value. Darius Slayton and Saquon Barkley have almost identical contracts. That should give you an idea of how the Giants value players, value leaders on their team. What happened. But Joe Schoen turned around, let Saquon Barkley walk, and then signed Darius Slayton to a 3-year, $36 million deal and gave him $22 million guaranteed. Saquon signed a 3-year, $37 million deals with $26 million guaranteed. They're almost identical. $4 million at the end of the day is a rounding error over 3 years, right? We're spending more on Daniel Jones this season, who's not fucking playing for us anymore. Way more than that. 5 times as much as that. Joe Schoen has also been a part in this failure. He does not deserve to have his job either. The fact that we're handing out contracts. You make John Runyon almost as much as Saquon Barkley, bro. I don't know how to justify it anymore. This team does what's bad for the organization more often than not. And drafting in the top 5 and walking away with Neighbors and walking away with Abdul Carter does not absolve them of being ass. You don't get to use top 5, top 10 picks to justify your success. You get those picks because you're fucking losers. That's how you get those picks. I'm sorry, I'm pissed off. If you're not, you should be, because this is unacceptable for the 10th straight fucking year.
But if you're not pissed off, I don't blame you. It's because you're used to it, and I'm used to it too. I'm apathetic, and I hate to be apathetic. Alex, it's October 6th, and we're talking about firing coaches. We're going to start looking ahead to the NFL draft. That's in April. It's October, early October. I just wanted at least for the Giants to be relevant past Halloween this year. They're not even relevant 7 days into the month of Halloween. Just embarrassing. Absolutely embarrassing. So if you are apathetic, I don't blame you. That's what the New York Giants do to you. They lose your will to care. They kill your will to care about them. It's very sad and it's very embarrassing, but it is what it is. And guys, we're sorry for all the negativity. I'm sure that we'll turn it into some positivity within the next couple days here. But short turnaround. Monday today, Thursday, the Giants are back on the football field. We'll let you know, of course, if we are doing a live stream this Thursday evening. Do make sure to stay tuned to the channel. We'll have plenty of content breaking down with the horrors of the New York Giants over the next couple of days. We'll probably do some film, but we'll also have some more conversations at large about the way this organization is run and our frustration with it. So do make sure to stay tuned. Make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Ring the bell so you don't miss an episode, and comment your thoughts down below in the comment section. If you listen to Apple or Spotify, do make sure to leave us a 5-star review and go ahead and follow us on all of our social media channels at Fireside Giants. Without further ado, we'll catch you on the next one. Have a good one, and see ya.
Perfect.